What's going on, guys? Coach Eugen here from Pheasyque Lab, and in this video we're going to talk about how to load for the My Strength Foundation program. As soon as you will download your first training sheet, you will notice that some exercises like the compound lifts will be using training percentages based off of your 1 rep max, while other exercises will be using RIR or reps in reserve. If you're already familiar with this topic, you can easily skip this video and go train. But if you don't know anything about it, don't worry, because on week 9 of the lab, we're covering it in much more detail. However, since we're using this training methodology starting from week 1, we figured it was a good idea to at least introduce you to it and briefly explain how it works. So RIR is basically a training methodology that allows us to tell how hard a set was based on how many reps we had left in the tank before reaching task failure, which is the point at which we can no longer perform any other repetition without substantially breaking our technique. And we don't want that. We want to stop a couple of steps before that happens so that we can provide enough of a stimulus for our muscles to grow, but without necessarily fatiguing ourselves excessively. How can we do that? I think the best way is to make an example. So let's say we have to perform 3 sets of 8 repetitions for the RDL with an RIR of 1 to 2. This means we have to perform the prescribed amount of sets and repetition with a weight that is challenging enough for us and allows us to exert high levels of effort for 8 repetitions. And if we were to add 2 repetitions more to those, then we would certainly reach task failure. So if there's an RIR of 1 to 2, this means we are stopping the set 1 to 2 repetitions before we reach task failure. To make you understand this better, I would pass the ball to Coach Jake, who can make us understand this better with more concrete examples.
So generally we'll see 3 different scenarios with clients. We have performing way too light, way too heavy, and then the perfect amount of effort in sets. Way too light looks like the first rep and the last rep do not change in speed. It's just going through reps, getting in the volume and so forth, but never really putting out effort. We do not want you to be too light on your sets. On this extreme, we have too heavy. So this could be failing your last rep, failing a couple of reps throughout the sets and so forth. If you're failing reps, you're too heavy, scale it back. Where we want you to land is right here in the middle. So how we want you to base your intensities, if you've never used reps in reserve, is to use it on an effort-driven basis and to scale that accordingly on your means. So let the reps and sets dictate the weight on the exercise. So what that means is that your first rep and last rep, there's a little bit of a noticeable difference in terms of speed. We can tell that you're actually struggling. We can tell that you're putting out more effort. And internally, you're gonna know that you're putting more effort into that set. Now, from a set-to-set basis, should you scale it up? How do you scale it up with this loading style? That comes down to your means. Obviously, do not go too heavy where you're failing, but then don't stay too light to where it feels so easy. So on a set-to-set basis, choose a weight that allows you to complete the sets and reps we're asking. On a week-to-week basis, how do you load? Well, that depends. If you were veering towards a very high effort-driven set and rep scheme the week before, then you might only increase 1 set the following week and so forth. The point is that as you go from week to week, your weight is either staying the same or increasing ever so slightly based off of your means. If you were able to complete all the sets and reps and they feel really easy with the weight that you did this week, and then you go to the next week, increase for 1 set, increase for 2 sets. Doesn't matter how many sets, it just shows that you are getting stronger and you're able to handle the means that you're choosing to do. So if you've never used reps in reserve, again, that's okay. We're covering them in week 9, but that's how we want you to load. Use effort to dictate the reps and sets you're doing, and then internally plug in those numbers to keep yourself honest with your loading.